Welcome everyone, if you're just joining. My name is Diania Merriam. I am the Chief Economist of the EconoMe Conference. I am also the host of the Optimal Finance Daily podcast. So this is a podcast where I read to you from some of the best personal finance blogs on the planet, sometimes a little too enthusiastically, and then I offer you some commentary as a part of the episode. It's a daily show. It's less than 10 minutes each episode. And so if you'd like to hear more from me, I encourage you to check out that podcast, and it's Optimal Finance Daily. But I also run the EconoMe Conference, which some of you may have been to this past March, and I'll get into it a little bit, what that is all about. You may notice, if you have not met me before, that there is a silent I in my name. So my name is not misspelled. It is pronounced Diana. I believe that my mom is on this webinar today, so she's probably chiming into the chat with some bullshit about a European spelling, but it is a misspelled name that you just pronounced Diana. I find it very ironic that there is a silent I in the name of someone who literally never shuts up. So that is me. And then the other misspelled words on this slide are literally just words that I made up. It's been happening since birth. And I will walk you through one of them today, which is Fi-lexibility. So what's going to happen on this webinar today? The first part of this webinar, I'm really just going to walk you through my financial journey, some of my background and stories, so that you really have some context of where this idea is even coming from. And then we're going to jump into this concept of Fi-lexibility. And what I really hope for you today, and really we've got an hour, we're 5 minutes in, hopefully I can get through all I want to tell you today, but what I hope you walk away with is some food for thought on how some of these ideas can apply to your own financial journey. So you're going to hear a lot about me today, but what I'd like to start with is I want to hear a little bit about you. I'm going to open up a quick poll here. And let's see, launch polling. I would like to know, what is your relationship with the FIRE movement? And that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. This is an acronym that I'm going to throw a lot around today, and I would like to know if you're familiar with it. Oh, this is great. This is great. We've got a good mix. We've got a lot of people like me on this webinar today where you're pursuing financial independence. We've got some people that are already there. We've got some people who are Fi curious, who are really going to enjoy wearing this t-shirt, I'm sure. And this is fantastic. We've got about 70% of the audience today is pursuing financial independence. And this concept, I think, is really going to apply to you if you are on this journey. Maybe you're out of debt, maybe you've made some progress, and you're looking for some food for thought. So I'm going to end polling, and I'm going to share these results so that you can see what kind of company you're in today. And it's great. We're in great company, 71%. A lot of you guys are like me. So let's dive in. I hope my story will resonate with you. So I'm going to stop share. I'm going to X out of this. Fantastic. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. My financial story really starts about 5 years ago. I'm in my late 20s, I'm 30 grand in debt, and I'm living in New York City. Now, when I think about my debt, ba-boom, 30 grand in debt. It really accumulated for me just not paying attention. I was very mindless about consumption, about the importance of financial literacy, and I really found myself in 30 grand of debt from not paying attention. Half of my debt, about 15 grand, was student loans, which for many of you, that probably doesn't sound like that bad, right? 15 grand of student loans, who cares? However, I got a full academic scholarship to college. So in theory, I could have walked out with no student loans, but I took them out for living expenses. And now in retrospect, that was kind of a dumb financial move, right? But these loans were just made available to me. So I went and took them. The other half of my debt, the other 15 grand, was really from high interest credit cards. And this is just being in New York City, living it up in my 20s, and just really living outside my means. So what was my mindset during this time of financial illiteracy? I would say that I thought I would deal with my debt sometime in the future, because obviously I was going to be making millions one day, right? Obviously, I'm going to be making so much money that my debt was not going to be an issue for very long. But needless to say, that is not a good financial plan. To just make more money one day, right? I think that financial literacy has a lot more to do than just increasing your income, which I had to learn that over time. But I never really had much of a sense of urgency about it in my 20s, and I find myself creeping closer to 30. You know, I'm around 28, I'm getting closer to 30, and I think 30 is really one of those reflective birthdays where you're like, what the hell am I doing with my life, right? And I had been working so hard to climb the ladder in my career, and I found myself with very little to show for it. And so I kind of found this sense of urgency that I really want to get out of debt. That became my goal. And so that led me to find this blog, Mr. Money Mustache. Many of you probably know who Mr. Money Mustache is. He is one of the most popular bloggers in the FIRE community. And I really like to describe finding this blog as a refreshing punch in the face. I mean, it really completely changed my relationship with consumerism and helped me see that my money could potentially serve a greater purpose than just buying shit. It really helped me wrap my head around the potential here. And it also helped me see that if I can't manage $1,000, I'm not going to be able to manage $1 million. It really created this urgency to become more financially literate and to figure this out. So that led me to make some lifestyle changes. I started cooking every meal I ate. I stopped going out so much, and I started hosting these elaborate dinner parties in my one-bedroom Brooklyn apartment. I stopped buying clothing, and instead I hosted and attended clothing exchanges with my much more fashionable friends. So I got all these free hand-me-downs from my friends. I shared my internet with the neighbors who lived below me in my apartment building, and I cut that bill in half. I made my own laundry detergent. I stopped wearing makeup and became comfortable with what my face looks like. And I really learned the art of borrowing and bartering. And it was just an incredible amount of fun. It did not feel like deprivation at all, which is definitely a perception, right? When you hear about someone reducing their expenses or becoming really frugal, you're imagining them eating rice and beans. You're imagining this lifestyle of deprivation and misery. But what I found is that I was able to tap into this degree of creativity and resourcefulness that I didn't even know I had. It was incredibly satisfying. And it also led me to get out of that 30 grand of debt in 11 months. Just crushed it. It was so much fun. And really getting out of debt was my first taste of what financial freedom could feel like. And it really motivated me to want to pursue financial independence. So after getting out of debt and learning all these frugal skills, I started saving and investing about 60% of my income. And it just made my future feel full of possibility. I really felt like as I'm approaching my 30th birthday that I'm starting to turn this around, this existential crisis that I was having. And I found myself in a position where I've got no debt, no man, no kids. I have the kind of freedom that people dream about, and I felt compelled to do something about it. So what did I do? I put my big girl pants on and I moved to the Midwest. I actually moved to Cincinnati about 3 years ago. Fun fact about Cincinnati, it is the lowest cost of living metro area in the country. As someone who is coming from New York City, I feel like it has everything that I would want out of a big city and like none of the downsides. And so I absolutely love it here. And I was able to work out a remote working arrangement with my employer to make this move. So I still was able to keep my job. This was before the apocalypse. So, remote work was definitely an unconventional ask at my company, who I had been with for about 5 years at the time. And I was thrilled to just be able to try something new, get myself out of New York City, and check out the Midwest. So I thought this might be fun to show you guys that when I moved from New York to Cincinnati, I actually shipped a cardboard cutout of myself to sit at my desk in the Empire State Building. And I imagine that when I was on conference calls with my colleagues, that they were all like looking at this cardboard cutout when I was talking. I later learned that it mostly sat in a closet. So I thought I was hilarious sending this to my office, and apparently they didn't appreciate it as much as I did, but thought it would be fun to share that with you. So I started asking myself, after moving to Cincinnati and getting these, also along the way after getting out of debt, I was getting pretty substantial raises at work. And so my income is increasing. I had reduced my expenses. I've got this gap growing that I am saving and investing, and I have this awesome savings rate of 60%. So I found myself asking myself, what is better than another raise? And I decided that it was time and freedom. That was going to be more valuable to me than more money at this stage in my life. And so what I ended up doing is I asked for a two-month unpaid sabbatical from work because I wanted to go walk the Camino. And for those that don't know, the Camino is a 500-mile trek across northern Spain. I could probably do a whole webinar on what I learned from the Camino. It took me 38 days to walk 500 miles. This picture here is me at the finish line in Santiago. This other picture here is I kept walking past the finish line, which is Santiago, to a coastal town called Machia. And that was actually much more significant to me than the finish line at Santiago because it is on the coast. So I literally walked across the whole country of Spain over the course of these 38 days. And it is such an amazing world adventure. I remember when I was pitching this to my boss to try to get this time off. And I said to her that, if I were to have a child right now, I'd be taking a 3-month maternity leave. And I don't want to birth a child. I want to birth a world adventure. And so, and it's only 2 months, not 3 months. And I'll come back like a better person. So let me do it. And they agreed, which was fantastic. I actually got a tattoo if you guys can see that, I got an arrow tattoo on my wrist when I reached Santiago because the whole way is marked by arrows. And it became a really comforting symbol to see an arrow and be like, oh shit, I'm not lost. This is great. I'm still on the way. So I could talk your ear off about the Camino, but I want to keep going with my story here and share with you some post-Camino rewards that entered into my life when I got back. I learned on the Camino that I really wanted to have a dog. I met a lot of dogs while I was walking the path, and they'd be loose in these like old medieval towns, and they would come up to you and they're super friendly, and I just adore dogs. So I adopted this guy. This is Buddy. He is my 80-pound lab shepherd mix, and everyone that knows me knows that I am absolutely obsessed with Buddy. He's my best bud. The other thing that I learned is that as much as I love travel and adventure, I really want a home base. I really learned that sleeping in a different bed every night while walking the Camino was a little disorienting for me. And so I wanted to put down some roots, and I bought myself a very reasonably priced house, $150,000 in Cincinnati, and it was completely renovated, 2 bedrooms. I'm sitting in one of them now. 2 bathrooms. I mean, I absolutely just love this house. And as someone coming from small 1-bedroom apartments in all over Brooklyn, I mean, this was really just awesome to be able to buy a house of my own. And then I also decided on the Camino that I really wanted a man of integrity. And so I found myself a Midwestern gentleman, and he came with his own chicken. I mean, how do you do better than this, right? So I had all of this adventure in my life just because I decided getting out of debt. And when I came back, I made these changes, and I really settled into this plan to reach financial independence by the time I'm 40. So right now I'm 33, I am 7 years away. And, I felt pretty good about my numbers and my calculations. And, I optimized as much as I could as far as expenses. I increased my income. Like, I was on the path. I'm good. But I had also just gone through a number of years of adventure. And so I felt this insatiable, like, what's next feeling. I was having fun with all of this. And I really got to thinking, if I reach financial independence by the time I'm 40 and I have the option to no longer have to work for money, what would I want to do with my time? And I thought a lot about this. And I came up with the concept of the EconoMe Conference. And really what this was supposed to be is this event that I wanted to produce while I'm in retirement as a fun way to spend my time. The thing is, I got so damn excited about it that I could not wait, the 7-8 years, whatever it was at the time, to reach financial independence. So I did it. Launched the EconoMe Conference back in March. We had our first event on March 7th. Really felt like I dodged a bullet there, because if it would have been just 1 week later, I would have had to cancel it. So this is actually me on stage with my best bud. He's a chief dog of the EconoMe Conference. And this is me closing out the show, kind of surveying people, seeing what they thought. It was the most incredible weekend of my life. I mean, I worked so hard on it, and it was an amazing reception. And if you were there last year or this year in March, thank you so much for coming. If you want to come, the next one is going to be in August, and you're on my mailing list now, so you'll get more information as that continues to get planned. But really, in short, the EconoMe Conference is basically the TED Talks of the FIRE movement. So we get amazing speakers to talk about financial independence from a number of different angles. We do breakout sessions. We screened Playing with Fire this past one. We have an after party, and we have activities. It's really a great way to surround yourself with the kind of people that are attracted to this webinar. I mean, you guys are awesome. And so this is an opportunity for us to gather in the same room and basically have a party about money. That's actually how someone described it after the last event. So really, the way I think about the EconoMe Conference is that financial independence to me, and it means a lot of different things to different people, but to me, it's this ability to create what I really want to see in the world without the need to make an income from it. And the EconoMe Conference is basically my grand experiment in this regard. It also made me realize that, even though I haven't reached financial independence yet, it just being on this path opens up a ton of options. Even though I'm technically not Fi, and that's kind of what's going to bring me into the topic today of Fi-lexibility. So that's my story. I hope it resonates with you in some way, or you were entertained by it in some way. And that's going to bring us to the meat of this presentation today about Fi-lexibility. So what the hell is Fi-lexibility? I like to define it as this mindset of elasticity amid the obstacles and opportunities that present themselves on the path to financial independence. So I think this concept is really about recognizing that pursuing financial independence is about so much more than actually reaching financial independence. So if reaching Fi is about opening up options, Fi-lexibility is about seeing the options you have now while you're on the way to even more options. It's a pretty incredible idea, if I don't say so myself. So the other thing I'll say about Fi-lexibility is that it's a concept I made up to make myself feel better about not being financially independent. It's a little bit of mental jujitsu, as I like to say. And I say that because I noticed that there's an attitude in the FIRE community that if you're not yet financially independent, like me and like 70% of the people on this webinar, that you should be constantly optimizing to reach it faster. You should be constantly thinking about growing your income and reducing your expenses and investing that gap so that you can reach FI faster. And what I've noticed is that when I was getting out of debt, I had this real sense of urgency, and that worked so well for those 11 months to just crush that debt and really see it as an emergency, right? But I don't think that that attitude is really going to carry me through my whole journey, that sense of needing to rush the process. I don't think that that's going to serve me very well in the long run. So this idea I'm calling Fi-lexibility really stems from me seeing my mindset around money continually evolve, right? First, I had to start with valuing saving over spending. And now that I'm in this kind of better financial position, how do I make this whole process of reaching FI more enjoyable? It's often said that personal finance is much more about mindset than it is about the numbers. And as I reach more milestones in this FI journey, I'm watching my mindset continue to change. And so this idea of FI-lexibility, I think really deviates from where I started, which was like the Mr. Money Mustache stuff of like, you know, really kind of reducing your expenses to an extreme, ride your bike everywhere, you know, save very large percentages of your income. This concept kind of deviates from that a little bit. I look at this idea of Fi-lexibility as a tool that I'm using while internalizing my goals. So if one of my big goals is to reach financial independence by the time I'm 40, for a number of reasons, which I'm going to walk you through, I'm being Fi-lexible about this time frame. And I hope that this is landing with you guys as well. So why be Fi-lexible? I've got a number of reasons for you here. Number one, because mindset matters a lot. So when you think about how to reach financial independence, yes, there's the number side of it, but most people would agree that a lot of personal finance is your mindset. And you need to believe what's possible with your money. So we all have conversations. If 70% of us on this call are pursuing FI or have reached FI, I'm sure you can resonate with having those conversations with your friends and family where you tell them, you know, your goals in life, which maybe one is to be financially independent, and people will be very dismissive of the idea. They'll say, well, you can do that. You can save 60% of your income, but I could never do it because I have kids, or I could never do it because of this, that, or the other reason, right? So I think that in order to even ever reach FI, you need to believe it's possible to increase your income, decrease your expenses, and invest the gap, right? And I think it's about recognizing this concept that thoughts become things, which sounds super woo-woo, so I apologize to anyone who might be rolling their eyes right now. But this has nothing to do with magical thinking. This has a lot to do with the process of how thoughts become things. So your thoughts become the words that you say to yourself and to other people. And when you say those words enough, they become ingrained beliefs. You need to have that ingrained belief in order to take action on it, right? And those actions over time become habits. Now, when habits become very mindless and it's just the way you live your life, that's going to lead to the realities that you ultimately want to see. So this is not about magical thinking. This is about recognizing that mindset is important as hell, right? So that being said, anything that your mind can sink its teeth into can be turned into a negative, even when you are in a great financial position because you value financial independence. So here's an example. There was a day last year when I was doing what I do at the end of the month, which I'll be doing this after this webinar today, calculating my income and expenses for the last month and determining what my savings rate is. And typically it's around 60%. Well, there was 1 month last year where it was 45%. And I felt like shit about it. Is that not the most ridiculous thing that you've ever heard? That I felt bad about myself, even in my incredibly fortunate position, my mind found a way to make me feel bad about my 45% savings rate. That is absurd. So that being said, there's a continuous need that we have to work on our mindset. And I believe that it's not only possible to become financially independent, I think it's possible to enjoy the entire journey. And I'm starting to question if becoming financially independent is even the best part. So that is the best part of the journey, right? So that brings me to my second reason as to why you might want to be Fi-lexible. It's really about prioritizing the journey over the destination. So I'm going to show you some posts that I found on Reddit of people torturing themselves on their way to FIRE. So check this out. How can I be happy while working? The thought of being unhappy until FIRE is making me depressed. Okay. FIRE, the lonely path. And he talks about on this post that, he's pursuing FIRE very aggressively, so he's not going out with friends. No one understands him. He doesn't have any friends on this same path. Maybe he should come to the EconoMe Conference and meet some of you guys. But this guy's lonely because he's pursuing FIRE, right? He's not enjoying the ride. This last one, FIRE threw my mental stability out the window, right? These are people pursuing this in a pretty extreme way. And it kind of makes me wonder, when I think about the tagline for the EconoMe Conference is provocative speakers exploring a new American dream. And what I liked about that is that a lot of people who pursue FIRE, it's because they've become a bit disenfranchised with the typical American dream, right? That typical story of you got to graduate high school, go to college, graduate, climb the corporate ladder, work the 9 to 5 till you're 65. I mean, that's kind of this storyline and narrative that we're sold of that's what the American dream is. And I think a lot of us on the FIRE path start going down that road and we become disenfranchised with that. And so then we discover FIRE and we think, wow, there's this unconventional way for me to look at this a little bit differently. But I wonder if sometimes we take it too far. Are we making FIRE into the new American dream in a bad way, in a way that's not satisfying? If FIRE is supposed to be about options and happiness and abundance, seeing posts like this really makes me think that we're losing sight of why we're pursuing it in the first place. I talk about how fun it was for me to get out of debt. I want my whole journey to be that satisfying as the first piece of it. And so that's what brought me to this concept of Fi-lexibility. I'm also acutely aware that if I can't figure out how to be happy now, I won't be happy when I reach financial independence either. It's not going to solve that. It's going to create more options. But at the end of the day, if you're not happy now, you're not going to be happy at FI either. So another point that I want to make, and it'll bring me to my third reason, is that if your sole focus is about reaching financial independence, you may miss out on these amazing opportunities to make discoveries about yourself. And so that brings me to my third reason, that I think one of the great things about financial independence is it opens up the option for early retirement. There's no requirement to retire early once you reach FI. We all know that, right? Or it can just open up some freedom to pursue the things we really want in life. But here's the thing. What if we don't know what we want? I cannot be the only person that doesn't know what they want. I am very jealous, to be honest with you, of people who are so clear on why they're pursuing financial independence. For some people, it's about staying home to raise their children, or they want to be an entrepreneur, or they want to live on a homestead. There's a lot of reasons why people pursue this lifestyle, but that's not it for me. I don't really know what I want ultimately. And it's a little horrifying, I think, to not know what you ultimately want out of life. But I say that I don't know what I want because of all the times that I've been wrong in the past. So I thought it would be fun to give you a few examples of what I used to think that I wanted, and ultimately I was wrong. So the first one, and this is so embarrassing to admit to you, but I used to say that I wanted to be the world's highest paid female CEO. This was in that naive time in my life where I was going to be making millions one day, right? And, you know, I think while it's embarrassing to admit this to you, I think it really captures my young, naive ideas about success, right? Because it didn't matter the work I was doing or the contribution I was making to the world. All I cared about at this time in my life was prestige, status, and a high income. And, you know, my motivations for this goal were completely out of whack. And so it's no surprise that as I matured, I quickly dropped this goal of being the world's highest paid female CEO. Another thing that I thought I wanted to do is stand-up comedy, which why do stand-up when I can do webinars all day? I'm assuming that you're all cracking up right now. I'm very much assuming that. But I absolutely love to make people laugh. And so the idea of doing that as a job was absolutely thrilling to me. I spent about 2 years refining my material and doing countless open mics in New York City and Cincinnati. And I ultimately decided to hang up the mic. And I think it's really because I recognize that my quality of life is really determined by the people I surround myself with. And the people I was meeting at these open mics were not my people. They just weren't. And so I definitely got a lot out of pursuing stand-up. I think it helped me realize that creative expression is super important to me, but I tried it and it's not my thing. So another thing I used to think I wanted was to play in a brass band. So music was a huge part of my life growing up. I played baritone horn in a school concert and jazz band for many years, and I missed it. And so I ended up finding this alumni drum and bugle corps back in 2014. I'll show you a picture of me here playing in the drum and bugle corps. It was this group of grumpy, retired old men. They all knew each other since they were teenagers. They played together in school, and I was the only person under 60, and I was the only woman. And I played with them for 2 years, and I just loved it. It was hilarious. However, ultimately, I found the time commitment to be a little bit too much. You know, these guys were retired. They had all the time in the world to sit around and toot their own horns. But I was not in that same position. So it ended up being too much of a time commitment, and I left the group. But I am, again, so much better for having that experience because I learned a ton from those grandpas. But also I learned that playing music in that way, it just wasn't going to be a way that I would want to spend a lot of my time in the future, but I needed to test that assumption to learn that, right? Here's another thing I thought I was going to do. I wanted to sing. For a long time, I've wanted to sing while I was walking the Camino. I found myself singing a lot to pass the time on the trail. And, you know, singing might be a strong word. Maybe it was more like wailing, but whatever it was very cathartic. And I came back with this idea that I really want to sing. And so I bought this house, and a school of rock actually opened right down the street. And it felt like the universe was saying to me, like, hey, you wanted to sing, here you go, you can sing. And so I went to the School of Rock, I trained for 4 months, and I ultimately sang about 7 songs in front of 100 people. And while I'm proud of myself for doing it, when the show was over, I was kind of relieved. Like, I didn't feel the way I thought I would feel from having that experience. So that's really good information to have, right? The other thing I thought I wanted was to become a digital nomad. I've always really admired people that travel full time and have these adventurous lifestyles. But again, after walking the Camino and sleeping in a different bed every night, I realized I do much better with a home base. And then my current experiment with what I think I want is entrepreneurship, starting the EconoMe Conference. And finding it to be the hardest and most gratifying work I've ever done. So I wanted to point this out because I am so glad I didn't wait until financial independence to do EconoMe. And part of it is because I took a huge financial loss on my first year of EconoMe. If I was actually financially independent and didn't have that extra income coming in, that would be a risk that I don't think I would have taken. I think I probably would have canceled it because ticket sales weren't covering costs and I wasn't going to be willing to float it with my retirement money. Having a full-time income really allowed me to float this until ultimately I'm hoping this next year that I'm going to break even. But to have that option really allowed me to take some more risks. I also want to point out that some of my life decisions, particularly the Camino and EconoMe, have not made reaching Fi the priority. And they most likely added time to my journey, but what I've learned from that makes it so worth it. I think the journey itself offers many gifts along the way and an opportunity to learn about yourselves, things about yourself. So I'm giving myself the ability to test these assumptions about what I think I want while I'm on the path to financial independence. Okay, so I know we're running low on time here. I told you I was long-winded. Okay, so here's my fourth reason, is really the need for balance. We have the need for balance when it comes to how to spend our resources. I believe our time, our money, and our energy are our three most important resources. And the way we spend any resource has an opportunity cost for the other two. So if you're focused so much on saving all your money to reach Fi, and all your time goes to making that money, do you really have the energy to enjoy all the fruits of your labor? There's a trade-off when you think about the intersection of time, money, and energy. So even though I say I don't know what I want, what I ultimately want is peace of mind and contentment. I think it's what we all want. And personally, I'm using this path to Fi to explore how to use my most powerful resources of money, time, and energy to find this sweet spot right in the middle, which I like to call the contentment bullseye. And it takes a lot of experimentation to figure that out. So I think because these three are so interconnected, being flexible about the money part within reason, of course, is giving me bandwidth to explore how I want to use my time and energy. So my last reason for Fi-lexibility is that life is a roller coaster. So what I thought my Fi journey would look like is this straight line, right? It seems like it's so simple when you read about it. Reduce your expenses, increase your income, and invest the gap. My path out of debt was such a straight line. And so I thought my whole Fi journey was going to be like that. However, my Fi journey actually looks more like this. And this line might be a little light for you guys to see. But, you know, it starts with getting out of 30 grand of debt. That's like a high, right? And then I have this existential crisis. Here's the low. But then I walk the Camino. Here's a high, right? One of the things I didn't dive into too deeply, but I've talked about on some other platforms is I've really had a long battle with depression. And so I'm getting reminders that I'm getting over time. So thank you for everyone reminding me. And so depression is really important as it relates to your money because you are trying to make financial decisions in a fog, which is not great. Of course, meeting my Midwestern gentleman was definitely a high, and then entrepreneurship, highs and lows there. You know, yes, I lost 40 grand on my first event, which you know, seems like a big hit financially. I'm hoping to make it up in the future. But I also got to create something that I'm really proud of. So highs and lows there. And naturally, we all find ourselves in this low of the apocalypse. So I think that the safety net we build for ourselves by keeping our expenses low and living below our means, it really helps us navigate what life throws at us. And so it puts us in the position to not only deal with these lows, right? We have more financial bandwidth to deal with the lows, but we also can seize the opportunities that present themselves along the way. And things that we couldn't even imagine when we're coming up with our financial goals. So I will leave you with some suggestions on how you can incorporate Fi-lexibility mindset. The first one is to try stuff, experiment. Do not wait until Fi to figure out what you want, because perhaps like me, you're wrong about what you think you want. So it's better to figure out while you still have an income rather than retire early to something that maybe isn't as enjoyable as you thought it would be. The next thing would be to consider maybe a mini retirement or a sabbatical. So before you fully pull the plug on your career, give yourself a few months to a year to take a break from work and knock something off your bucket list. It can be really eye-opening to what the future might hold for you. And you could get some clarity that will serve you well in the long run and avoid burnout during your working years. I would encourage you to continually innovate for self-discovery and test those assumptions. So let's say you think you want to walk the Appalachian Trail in retirement. Maybe you can try like a week-long trip like that to see, is this feeling the way that I want it to feel? Maybe you want to go back to school and earn another degree, but maybe you should first, find some free courses online and make sure that subject matter can really hold your interest over time before you invest so much time and money in that endeavor. I'd also encourage you to write down your goals, make a bucket list. I think that everything has a season and, even your ideas for your bucket list. So by writing down your dreams and goals in the moment that you're most excited about them, I believe that you really harness their power, even if you can't take action on them right away. It can be incredibly fun to look back on the things you thought you wanted to do and have either the satisfaction of experiencing them or the clarity of knowing that they really aren't for you, or the excitement of figuring out how to tackle them next. So writing them down, I think, is very, very important. And finally, give yourself the Fi-lexibility to change your mind. This is your life. This is your one awesome life. So, you could decide along a path and then say, actually, it's not for me, and I'm going to switch and do something else. So, thank you, everyone, for bearing with me on my long-winded presentation here. I am going to stop share. All right, so let's get to some questions. Okay, so it looks like we've got some that are upvoted. Great. So first question, what was the most impactful change you made on your Fi journey? Okay, so I think the biggest shift for me, and I can't tell if you're asking about like changes to maybe my spending. I think the most impactful change was really, again, on my mindset. When I first started out, I was reading about all of the, sorry, hold on a second. We've got a little scammer troll here that I want to. Okay, sorry about the chat feature here, guys. I don't know how to kick that person out. Let's see, participants. I just want to handle this so that it's not distracting. Okay, so hopefully that works. So what is the most impactful change you've made on your Fi journey? I think that recognizing that the people that I read about online that are pursuing fire and taking their stories with a grain of salt, and that just because some person reaches fire in one particular way, that it doesn't necessarily apply to me. So I think really recognizing that personal finance is personal and that the only one that can make decisions about what I should and should be doing is me. It's a very empowering place to be. So that I would say is the most impactful change that I made in just stop trying to copy everybody else and figure it out for myself. Okay, so test question. Thanks, Josh, for testing. Is it best to invest in Roth or personal brokerage to reach fire? Okay, so an investment question. And I will say here that I am not a financial advisor. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but I'll tell you what I do. I think that tax advantages accounts are the best way to invest for the long run. And so what I like to do is I fully fund my 401k. I fully fund my HSA, and I fully fund my Roth. So, you know, that's a big chunk of my savings every year. And so I do that before I start investing in my brokerage, my after-tax brokerage. Okay. So, hope that answers that question. My mom says, hi, honey. Hello, Mom. Okay. So my situation is a lot different than yours. I'm 30, a year out of grad school, and new to debt over 100K student loans now. What are the best things to tackle during the journey to FIRE? Okay, so I would actually encourage you, if you're 100 grand of debt, check out this video from the EconoMe Conference. It is called Student Loans Don't Need to Hold You Back from Your Dreams, or something like that. If you go to the EconoMe Conference YouTube channel, you look up Travis Hornsby, and this was his presentation. He has a company called the Student Loan Planner. And even though I don't have any student loan debt, I thought it was fascinating what he said about student loans. It was definitely very unexpected. It's a different kind of debt than, say, credit card debt, because, for instance, the interest doesn't compound. I found that to be very surprising. There's also a lot of programs like pay as you earn. There are forgiveness programs that you can take advantage of. So if you have a lot of student loan debt, that is not a death sentence. You actually are in a really great position. You just need to kind of know some tools and tricks and approach that debt very differently than you approach your other debt. So I would very much encourage you to check out that video from the EconoMe Conference. It's Travis Hornsby, and check out the Student Loan Planner. There's a lot of advice there and strategies on how you can tackle that kind of debt. Okay, what FIRE personal finance books do you recommend? Okay, number one book that I recommend, especially around investing, because that was the thing that I was the most insecure about on my financial journey. Like, getting out of debt was super fun. However, you know, investing I was a little unsure about. And so I highly recommend The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And I'm sorry for all of these like trolls in the chat. It's very much distracting, someone like calling me a faggot this whole time. Like, funny, but not funny. I don't know how they got in here. Anyway, so as far as books, definitely The Simple Path to Wealth on investing, and also Your Money or Your Life, I think, is an amazing book to help you with the mindset piece. Because again, you have to have this mindset shift to be able to recognize the potential of your money. So I think Your Money or Your Life does an amazing job there. So those are my two favorite books, Your Money or Your Life or The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. Do you utilize a mastermind group approach to have a small group of others to keep you on track with your goals? Yes. I actually am a part of a mastermind, and we talk about all kinds of things, like different goals for our business or financial goals. So absolutely, I would utilize a mastermind group and maybe find other people, like come to the EconoMe Conference and find other people that have similar interests and work on those goals together. I think accountability and being around like-minded people can supercharge your financial journey, because, you know, money's such a taboo topic. And so to be able to talk about this stuff with someone you really trust, I think is very helpful. So absolutely to masterminds. What is the key to budgeting time? What are some good resources, instructions to turn to? I feel that my mismanagement of time is affecting me financially by not allowing me to focus. Okay. Yes, I would say managing time, it really boils down to priorities, right? Because the way that you spend any resource, whether it's your money, your time, or your energy, is a reflection on what you value. So I think being really clear on what you value and how you can spend your time to fully, you know, appreciate those values is super important. Staying organized, learning how to prioritize, One thing that I think has really helped me in the way that I use my time is I read this book called The Miracle Morning. And this book is about some like kind of personal development activities to do in the morning. And it really sets my tone for the rest of the day. It gives me energy so that I'm using my time most efficiently. So I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on like budgeting time and time management type things. I definitely experiment with what works for me. Another actual productivity tip that I can give you and in allowing you to focus, something that's working really well for me, there's this service I was introduced to called Go Done. And it's basically a website where you get on a webinar or a Zoom call like this, and you are paired with a couple of other people, and it's for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And you basically, it's accountability in real time. You have other people there where you tell them, I'm going to get 10 emails done in the next 25 minutes. And then you report back to them and tell them how it went. So it's almost like having that mastermind or accountability person, but it's in real time because they're actually having a working session with you. So that's been really helping me a lot with my time management because I get a session on my calendar every day. And I make sure that I get my most important tasks done, my prioritized tasks during that Go Done session. So again, it's called Go Done, and maybe I'll see you on there sometime. Okay, so it looks like we've got about 6 minutes left. And thank you, Josh posted Travis's video in the chat, so you can check that out for the student loan planner presentation. I always wonder if it makes more sense to do a Roth or a traditional. Currently we do traditional. I always worry I should just be doing Roth. Okay, so the difference between a Roth and a traditional IRA is based on when it's taxed, right? So a Roth, your money is taxed before it goes in, it grows tax-free, and then you can, not be taxed on it when you take it out. So your, sorry, this is hopping around. Your traditional is you're going to be able to put that in pre-tax. So it's similar to your 401k. You'll put it in pre-tax. It will grow without taxes, but then you're taxed when you take it out. You're taxed on the gains when you take it out. So I think what you're trying to balance now is you probably want to have a combination of accounts that are taxed before or taxed after. And it really is, what do you anticipate when you are actually in retirement financial independence and you're drawing down from those accounts? Do you expect that your yearly income will be lower? Your income will be lower in retirement so that you're in that lower tax bracket and it'll be, good for you in the long run. Or are you thinking you're going to be in a higher tax bracket and so you'd rather pay the taxes now through a Roth? That's kind of the balance that we have. There's also some income limits. So I know like I wasn't able to take a tax deduction for the traditional because I exceeded the income limit. So I would not have that benefit anyway. I have to put it in a Roth. So yeah, I think that it's just a balance of, what your tax situation is going to be. The reality is if you're putting it into either, you're in good shape. You're saving for retirement. So I think it's just looking at the combination of your accounts and what makes sense for you. Okay, we got about 3 minutes left here. Okay, when you send out the recording, can you please include the books and website you mentioned in the email? Absolutely. Thanks, Serene. I'll forget the haters. I really don't understand how these trolls got in here, but okay. Let's see. I also really like Quit Like a Millionaire. Yes, and Financial Freedom, A Proven Path to All the Money You'll Ever Need. So those are a couple of other books. Quit Like a Millionaire was written by the people behind the Millennial Revolution website. And Financial Freedom, I believe, is written by Grant Sabatier, if I'm saying that correctly. Let's see. Okay, mastermind group. How do you find the people to create the group? Here's where I would start. We all have people in our life that we find inspiring. We all have people in our life where we have them over for dinner or we see them and we just say like, wow, I need to spend more time with that person, or that person is very, I feel energy when I'm around them, or they have a skill set that I don't have. So I would start with finding just like 1 or 2 people already in your network that really inspire you and that you feel like you can learn from, and then invite them to invite some of those people for them into the group. And so my mastermind group that I'm in now, it's we're at 6 women now, but we don't want to have any more than 8 people. We're actually in the process now of adding a couple of people in, and it's just like friends from your network that that you think would really contribute to the group. Someone wants to get my number, but I'm sorry, my wonderful boyfriend, I don't think would appreciate that. Okay, this may be a dumb question, but how can one retire early investing in Roth if you can deduct funds from Roth until 59? Okay, so that is a common question about early retirement. And I think Josh may have put a link into the chat on the Roth conversion ladder. So that is a process of converting, your funds to make them more accessible before 59. Also, you can deduct contributions from your Roth. So the gains that you're making, they would have a penalty and need to be taxed. But the money that you put in there, you've already paid tax on it, and that's your money. You can deduct it before 59 without penalty. Okay. And then it looks like the rest of these questions are all from the trolls. Okay, so that is that, guys. I really appreciate you joining this webinar. I am so sorry about these trolls in the chat, but just goes to show that there are just crazy people on the internet, and we just got to do what we do and ignore them. So thank you so much for coming. It's my first webinar. I hope to do more of these and continue to interact with you guys. So thanks again, and I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.